Okay, so I'm not going to explain captions. Oh, well, this is for people who weren't at CAP's talk, but I do like to show people when I do presentations how to put on captions on Google Slides. Down here in the corner, there's the More button, and you can go to Captions, select your position and size, and then toggle them on. I put captions on the top and large because when captions are on the top, they don't interfere with closed captions on the bottom. There's some images in the slide deck, but they're mostly for decorative purposes, but there are some screenshots of the issue queue that I'll explain as I go. Okay, so that's enough about housekeeping. Drupal Camp Colorado does not have its own contribution channel, but because this is a first-time contributor workshop, we're inviting people to collaborate on Slack for first-time contributions. So you log into Drupal.org Slack, and there's a first dash contribution channel where it's a very safe place to ask questions, maybe coordinate with the people you've worked with at your table groups today. So how does a mentored contribution day work? They all work a little bit different, but all kind of the same. After the workshop and after getting to know what you might want to work on, you pick a table group. As a table group, sometimes you find something to work on together, or the person who's sort of leading the table group might have an idea of what they want to work on already. We find an issue, we update an issue, we make a comment on the issue, and then we kind of decide what everyone's going to do at the table. Like say me and Clayton decide to work on documentation, we go in there and we both make a comment on the issue that we're working on, and then we divide up the tasks. You know, maybe Clayton will work on, if it's a README, he'll work on the first section, I'll work on the second section, and Tim will work on the bottom section. We do like to keep our issues updated as we go. So as we work on our issues, we communicate with each other, and we communicate in the issue as well in case someone else is working on the issue. And then after the event is over, like kind of checking in with that issue and checking in on that first contribution to see if other people are working on it is always a good idea. So we'll talk a little bit about why we contribute, the benefits of contributing, the types of contributions. We'll talk a little bit about the strategic initiatives that are available to work on in Drupal core right now, along with some community initiatives. We'll look at the issue queue because maybe you've looked at the issue queue and there's just so much stuff going on. So we'll do sort of a 500-foot version of the issue queue. We'll talk about etiquette because we are a global community. We want to make sure that we all sort of play nice together and we understand the rules behind the messaging that we have. We'll take a look at merge requests. We will not do merge requests here. I'm not going to do a demo because it's a short workshop, but Randy and some other people will come in and they'll kind of like hook you up with some tooling and go through what a merge request is. And we'll look at the tooling and documentation as well. So who are we? We have people who are new to Drupal. You know, they're just getting started and they're curious what Drupal contribution looks like. Maybe you've used Drupal for a few years but never contributed back. That's where I find most of the people who come to first-time contributing workshops. Maybe you've been organizing events, or maybe you've been volunteering at events and you're looking for a new way to get involved. You can sort of explore contribution areas, you know, outside of your normal workspace, like documentation or testing or mentoring. Maybe you worked on Drupal contributions when we made patches and you don't know the new workflow. That's a good reason to come. And basically anyone, you know, is a good contributor to Drupal. We know that when we involve not only our developers, but our designers, our coders, and our content creators, that our product is stronger because everyone has something different to offer. This is a little bit of a guilt trip, but if you depend on open source depends on you. Giving back really helps us sustain our tools and keeps our project moving forward. When we work in a silo, we may have been working on issues that the greater community is working on, but we don't give back, and so we duplicate work sometimes. And then contributing really connects you to part of the community. It's an extra day that you go to for DrupalCon, you know, there's contribution day. It also brings us together after our camps and cons because we're working together in the issue queue, we're working together in Slack. I really found it's a good place to connect. Maybe you work for a company that doesn't think contribution is important. You know, maybe when you go in for your one-on-one, you can say that, you know, companies should give back. You know, again, it reduces that duplicity. You know, a company is working on something for Drupal AI, and then they don't give back. Someone else is doing the same work as them, so it's really advantageous to give back, and it promotes good corporate citizenship. People who like to work on code and open source want to work for companies that work for open source, so it's a good talent recruitment as well. What do you need to contribute? Do you have a Drupal.org account? Okay, so you need a Drupal.org account to contribute.
Matthew fixed. Are you able to do things now?
I haven't tested it, but
He'll be good.
Was he not a confirmed user?
6.5 years and he wasn't confirmed.
Okay, so,
so
to the crowd,
it's just like madness.
we had a user that had been on Drupal.org for quite some time, but they still had that little green banner that said not a confirmed user, and so you get picked up for spam abuse and things like that. So sometimes you have an account, but you can't use it. And usually someone at a camp or someone can help you with that. Drupal.org profile is pretty self-explanatory. You really want to just keep it simple. You know, your username, work, profile, pic, social links, and mentor. Some people use alternative handles. Some people use their name. It's up to you what you want your Drupal.org profile to be. Some of our most prolific contributors are non-code contributors because sometimes I feel like, or not sometimes, a lot of the time I feel people say, well, I'm not a coder, you know, I'm just in project management, or I'm just, you know, in QA. Well, everyone has something to give back to Drupal. You don't have to be a coder or a developer to do that. Different ways to start our contributions. You know, if you're not a coder, maybe you are a novice new to Drupal and the documentation doesn't help. Well, you're the perfect person to help improve documentation. You've never been in the issue queue before, so having some issue triage helps because if you can't understand the issue, someone else can't, so breaking down that issue and doing triage. Say English isn't your first language, you do translations and localizations, there's content review, there's a huge marketing push right now in Drupal. Some very non-code contributions are things like event organization and sometimes sharing your knowledge, like like being a speaker or a trainer. So say you are a code contributor or you can contribute to code. There's testing experimental features. You know, Drupal is always innovating. There's always new things to test. You know, creating merge requests. You know, we used to call them patches. You know, improving the code or bugs. Testing merge requests on issues, and then of course providing feedback. You know, in the form of a code review or some sort of like documentation review, giving feedback on new initiatives too. Like say a new initiative comes out like Drupal CMS and you have some opinions about where it should go. There's issue queues developed around that as well. Drupal.org/documentation, that's the URL for documentation. I'm just going to kind of fly through these, but there's all kinds of different guides that are available to Drupal users. There's official guides. These include the Drupal user guide, they include the evaluator guide, they include the local development guide, and these are governed by maintainers and held to a really high standard. So when we work on these official documentation pages, we work in the form of, in the issue queue in the form of merge requests and things like that. Some of these non-official guides, we work with just an edit button. So editing these curated guides is a little bit more difficult. Like I said, the changes are in ASCII doc files, and I don't know if that's necessarily true all the time. You know, some of them are merge requests, but these are a little bit more like working with the maintainers and giving the feedback. Whereas these community guides, they can be edited by any member of the community. And these are things like API guides, the Drupal CMS user guides, This is a great place to start because it's a new initiative. The Starshot initiative is inside of the Drupal CMS issue queue. Changes via edits. You can see here, this is a community page. It's a documentation page on being a confirmed user. If you're logged in and a confirmed user, you have an edit button here where you can go in and make changes straight on the single file. It goes into a queue. It tells you you have the, you select that you want to make a revision, and then you provide justification why you made the revision. And anyone who's ever worked on this before gets a notification, and they can review what you did and confirm it. The contributor guide, in this section, you will find information on how to figure out how your unique skills can help with contributions, because all of us have different skills, different perspectives. And when you join the Drupal community, to improve the Drupal software, like I said, there's things like translations, localizations, the way we test our products are all different. And the contributor guide has a list of tasks that can help you figure out what you want to do. Contribution, these documentations are usually in the form of external documentation guides connected to the project page, or sometimes in the form of readmes in the repository itself. Documentation on Drupal.org. These are like content moderation things like user accounts, content guidelines, marketplace, moderation, maintenance, GitLab integration. This is all stuff that's editable by confirmed users as well. And that's more content review than anything. Translations. There's always a need for contributions in translations. A lot of parts of Drupal have incomplete versions of core. So that's like parts of the interface that will show up in English on a Spanish site. Others need corrections and improvements in the language. Maybe someone used AI to provide the translation, and someone who's actually native to the language can go in there and hone it in a little bit better. But I think beyond Spanish, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of those, there's no language that has a complete set of translations for all the contributed modules. So the contributed modules is a great space if you can help with translations. All different kinds of roles are available for it. Not only like translating it, but you can be the translation moderator where you can say, this is not quite right, and you can suggest improvements. Marketing, there's a huge push. I think it was 2 years ago in Lille that we had a whole marketing campaign. The Dries Note announced, a big push for marketing Drupal to make Drupal more relevant in the wider open source community. And promoting Drupal is one of the, I'm not going to say easy, but one of the most straightforward things that you can do by sharing and celebrating in your networks. This can be like sharing articles from the Drop Times, sharing articles from reputable companies, sharing blog articles, sharing social media posts, mentioning Drupal when you're on a podcast. I work for the Linux Foundation, but I'm constantly saying how Drupal is in my roots. And then people ask me what Drupal is, and I'm bringing it out in that forefront. And I'm talking in panels or giving a talk, I'm always mentioning Drupal. And then, say we're doing accessibility training in the wild, mentioning Drupal as an example when you're in that training, it helps Drupal reach beyond our little bubble that we have, or big bubble. Promoting Drupal can take a few different forms. This is not all inclusive, but we, again, like I said, presentation, social media, photography, capturing moments from events or team collaboration. People love seeing people in action. Logos are a great way to promote Drupal. We have a big push for the Drupal marketplace. The browser.
The browser project?
The browser initiative. Right? Project Browser Initiative. They're looking for people to create logos, to make the marketplace look a little bit fresh. So we have maybe the top 100 Contrib modules have logos. So if you're a designer, giving back to Drupal in the form of logos is it can be very helpful because not everyone can draw a pretty picture on their post. Different roles that you can have. You can be a videographer. You can help Kevin with the Drupal recording initiative. He can't go out and record every session at every camp, and so signing up to do that. You can be a writer. You can write for, used to be you could write for opensource.com, but there's places like All Things Open where you can write a Drupal article and get us up in the wider ecosystem. So the issue queue is what probably most people want to learn about. There is a difference between core and Contrib. It's very interesting, the background doesn't show up on the slides. The slides have like the triangles in the back, but it doesn't show up there. It's interesting.
That is weird.
So what's the difference between core and Contrib? Well, when you're contributing in Drupal, sometimes core is scary. Sometimes core is intimidating. And it's okay that you don't necessarily want to start your first practice in core. You can start in Contrib. A lot of the practices are the same. So Drupal.org is where most of the code that makes Drupal sites work, including the Drupal core project. All Drupal websites run on a version of core. What makes each website different is those additional elements that contributed, the contribution. So extending Drupal, there's distributions, there's themes, there's modules, and now we're working on recipes. So a distribution is a set of features and functions for a specific site, and they use a single download containing the core software that has a set of contributed modules, themes, and predefined configuration. You ever use Drupal Gardens? Anybody? Your Drupal Gardens came with this pre-thing, and then like sometimes they'll be like the school websites will have these pre-configured distributions. Pantheon had Panoply. Distributions are get you kind of locked in, and they're a little bit better to work with. But say you create a really nice recipe site, and you have an idea for the community, and you want to have a distribution that has all those things locked in. A theme is the look and feel, the visual part of your site. A module is an extension, you're adding functionality, it's JavaScript or CSS files. Core is very selective, they don't want it to be bloated, and so sometimes there's something not in core, and that contributed module might be able to be the difference of what makes it work for you. And then recipes are modules and configuration by creating scripts that you can install. And I'm not quite sure, because I'm not a coder, what the difference between a distribution and a recipe is, but a recipe isn't as locked in, is from what I understand, but it's the same concept of having pre-configured idea of what.
You can also have multiple recipes in a single Drupal instance.
Okay.
So if there are a few things that you like, you can mix them in.
Okay. So someone in the crowd said the recipes, you can have more than one recipe installed to get your site a little bit more robust and fine-tune it to what you want. Okay, so in the issue queue, I always recommend that people start small, just start small, even if it's just, I don't want to say just, that's a reductive word, even if it's changing the metadata to match where it is, or updating the issue summary. So start small and then work your way up. If that first contribution in the issue queue is merely just you sitting at a table with your group and putting your name in there and getting that muscle memory of what it's like to work in the issue queue, that's great. So say you find a bug, maybe it's an accessibility barrier, maybe it's a confusing feature, you just don't understand what's going on. You can open an issue to flag it for others to see. You don't have to know how to fix it to open an issue. It's for you're asking someone for help. We can update the issue. Say I know what's going on with your bug, so I'm going to clarify things. I'm going to add any details. I'm going to improve the summary. That way, the next person who works on it, there's a little bit more understanding for them. Triaging issues. This is a good task when you want to get acquainted with the issue queue. This helps by tagging issues correctly. There's a whole set of tags, what we'll go into in a little bit, where it is in the life cycle of the issue, and then providing feedback, like maybe you tested the patches or you reviewed the merge request. we can provide feedback that is constructive. You know, we don't want to shame anyone in the issue queue. We want to educate and have it a learning opportunity
Unless
for
it's
people.
manful.
I enjoy being shamed.
But we want to give constructive feedback in the issue queue if we have some. And then testing, you know, testing is something that not everyone can do. So manually or automatically testing features, say you like create a Circle CI thing to make sure that once that merge request is going, that we're not introducing new bugs. So we're going to look at that 500 foot view of the issue queue. These are a little bit small for in the back, but we do have a URL for the issue queue. It's project/issue/Drupal, and that's for the Drupal core issue queue specifically. You can see here, you know, you have your download and extend page. It gives you where you can download Drupal. This is a kind of a generic looking, all module pages sort of emulate this. You can see who the maintainers are. You can see how many issues are open. You can see where you can see the code. It's not on the screen, but down below you can look at the code without downloading the code. The one on the right is a picture of the issue queue. You know, you can see it's got several categories that you can filter by. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. It's hard to see, but they are color coded, but the color codes match what status they are. So if you have some color contrast issues in your life, it is indicated by the status as well. Okay, so we do have a link here. It's a bit.ly/Drupal-novice. This filters the issue queue by novice issues. So if you're new to the issue queue or new to coding, you know, those are two different things, but this is the same queue for it. It opens up only the issues that are marked novice. Again, this is a bit like a larger look at the issue queue. This is for all issues in core, so it can be overwhelming. There are some filters at the top, but there's this magical filter up here called advanced search. And here I am pointing to advanced search. When you open up advanced search, it opens up a bunch more categories. I'll toggle back. So, you know, here we have status, priority, category, version, and component, and we have a generic search bar. But when we open up that advanced search, now we can search by component, and we can search by issue tags. And issue tags are glorious. Say you are a Ajax developer, or you are looking for that novice tag, or maybe you're looking for testing, maybe you're looking for documentation. This is where you would create your own filter. It's autocomplete, which is kind of nice as a new person, so you start to push DO, and then there's a whole bunch of things that are under DO, and then you just select search when you find the one that you're looking for. Novices, I do have a recommendation to steer clear of certain issues. One of them, if you're working in the Contrib space, to not work on a project that isn't actively maintained. And you can tell by when the last release is, or you can go into the issue queue and issues are years old. If a project doesn't have any recent commits, some more support might be limited, and your contribution, especially as a beginner, it goes unanswered, and it isn't very empowering for you. You know, you spend a lot of time on an issue that's just going to kind of be there for years. If we have multiple issues that are marked won't fix, and you'll see that when you open an issue, this can be a sign that the maintainers are selective and that the project is no longer evolving. So that could be a little bit disheartening as a novice as well. Outdated issues. This is kind of hit and miss because in core, when we were doing triage this week for this, I looked at some issues that are currently being worked on, but they're 10 years old. Mm-hmm. But as a novice, maybe you don't have the historical knowledge to go back that far. And there's like, you know, leads into the next statement. Maybe there's like 150 comments that you have to sift through to figure out what's been going on during that issue. And sometimes when there's more than 20 comments, more than 30 comments, it's complex discussions or disagreements, and it might not be the ideal place for a first timer to step in. It might be roadmap sort of stuff. Issues with frequent status changes, like maybe they go to needs review, needs work, active, needs work, active. Sometimes that's not a great place to start either because they maybe haven't defined exactly what they're looking for. And then there's one part here, the issue priority metadata. There's critical, normal versus minor. Critical issues are urgent. They may require deep expertise or be resolved very quickly. And so sometimes maybe that's not the best place to work because the issue is moving so quickly. Normal, these are a great place to jump in. They're impactful but manageable. And minor issues can even be better because they're smaller fixes and a little bit less involved to figure out what's going on. So anatomy of an issue. There's different components in that metadata. We've got a title. We want to make sure that, I'm going to talk this through like we're creating an issue. We have a title. We want to make sure that we have a descriptive title. So when we see that long list of issues, we can identify what it's about. So, short and concise and to the point. The category helps us indicate like if it's a task, if it's a bug, if it's a feature request, if it's a roadmap. Typically when we open up, if it's a bug, it's a bug, but typically like say we're like improving documentation, that would be a task. I find myself marking things tasks more than any of the other categories. Priority, this is the relative importance of an issue in relation to project and other issues. So say I'm working on smart trim, but my module, somebody else's module is dependent on mine and there's a bug here, so they're waiting for my fix. So sometimes the priority might be a little bit higher when there's relationships between issues. Status is where it is, when we open an issue, it's active. If we're working on an issue and we want someone to review it, we mark it needs review. Someone's reviewed it and moves to reviewed and tested by the community. Say it didn't pass review, it goes back to needs work. And so sometimes an issue can kind of go back and forth as the issue either evolves or people become, as a novice, give yourself grace and understand that you might have to work on that merge request a couple of times because maybe you just didn't understand the full reality of what the issue was, and take that feedback. There's tags. This helps hone in on different things. We do tag for Drupal events. That helps us together when we work. We'll look up our tag and then we can work on those issues together. Assign. So this is a tricky one. In Contrib modules, we can sometimes assign ourselves an issue if we're actively working on it, but be careful when you do that when you're done working on it, that you unassign yourself. Like say, this is the work I've done so far, I couldn't complete the issue, but unassign yourself. But sometimes we assign ourselves to just, so there's no redundancy in the task. But in core, we never assign ourselves issues. That's left for maintainers. Why we have the ability to assign ourselves issues in core, maybe that's a ticket that can be created, but we do typically not assign ourselves issues in core. And then summary, this is where you put the description of the issue. You make sure that you do steps to replicate what you anticipate the outcome to be when the issue is worked on. The tag today is DCCO2025. It's autocomplete, so when you start to type that, when you're tagging the issue that you're working on, please select the tag that's already exists, because sometimes we'll have like accessibility spelled wrong twice as a tag, so we just try to let, if we tag anything, let it autocomplete, and typically the only new tags we come up with are event tags. So here's that picture of the metadata. Here's that tagging as you type, like I said, needs documentation. So two of them are available. One is updates and one is needs documentation. There are different issue summaries. There is a page on Drupal.org, and it didn't make it to this. There's usually a URL here, but the issue queue by default injects the problem motivation template. When we create an issue, this gives us ideas of what we can put for different things. Sometimes, usually, this data model change is never used, but if you go through this and use it, feel free to delete the ones that you're not using. But there are different types of templates. This is just the default one. Here's those steps to replicate. Here's what you propose as a resolution. Let's say you don't know that. You can either delete it or you can say, to be determined. And then these are the special template plates I was talking about. There's a Bear one, which it's just for summaries, and it doesn't require the explanations. There's a different template for documentation, initiative proposals. Sometimes an issue gets very big and balloons, and it's really hard to understand, and they'll create a side issue with just remaining tasks, and they'll link the issues together. That way it's a little bit easier to parse. And then visual issues, these are involving visual regressions or accessibility changes and things like that. So there are certain pages for those. I kind of went through a little bit of this when we're doing issue summary, like saying we're updating summaries. We want to make sure that we understand the issue and its current status. So sometimes reading the issue works, but other times you might have to parse through some of the comments. That's why I recommend less than 20 comments. But sometimes the last comment will say what the remaining tasks are. And feel free to move that into the issue summary. That's part of issue queue triage, is making sure you can kind of go through and be like, oh, okay, this person asked for this, and this. And if it's all in one spot, it makes working on the issue a little bit easier for someone else.
That's one of my favorite Contrib things to do.
Oh, good.
Because that just drives me crazy if I'm read the issue summary and I can't figure out where things are at. Mm-hmm. It's just, so sometimes, even if I'm not even the one to work on it, I'll just clean up that issue description with that.
And if you do clean up the issue, if you get it wrong, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
I think so. But yeah, having it all in one place makes it really easier for collaboration. It should really identify the key points, and then when you're doing that summary, linking it to the comments that are relevant helps people too. That way if they need a little bit more background. Transparency. When you can either follow an issue without, say it's an issue on a bug that you have in one of your projects and you want to track it, you can follow it. But what happens is when you work on an issue or you make a comment on an issue, you are automatically subscribed to that issue. So you get an email every time. The maintainers get an email every time. So I like to tell people to be kind. Like if you're only switching metadata and not doing anything in the comment, I really would love if you wrote in the comment, I'm assigning this to myself. I'm changing the tag. I'm doing this, because when they get the email, they won't really see what's going on. So if you give them a brief description of any of that metadata you changed, they don't have to go back to the issue and look at it. So be kind to them. And be kind, if you can, by trying to make as few comments as you can. Like if you're working on it through the day, kind of gather up your comments and make them all at once. So, but always make a comment. It's super nice. So what to be transparent about? If it's the first time you're doing something, if it's the first time you're contributing to Drupal and this is the first time you're doing a merge request, I invite people to be like, I am at Contribution Day at Drupal Connect Colorado 2025. This is my first contribution, and I'll be working on this issue with X, Y, and Z, and I'll be doing this task. Because it helps reviewers understand your perspective and maybe give you different guidance and know that this is a learning opportunity for you. It gives them a little bit more grace, because maintainers do a lot of work. It just gives them that perspective of why you might have made a mistake or why you made 2 comments in a row, things like that. So be transparent about the first time. Be specific when you change the tag or create a new tag. Explain the reason, like needs review or accessibility. If the issue is being reserved for new contributors, we do issue queue triage at bigger events and we'll mark things novice, but then people will come in and do those issues before contribution day happens, and then we don't have any issues. So we try to tell people, hey, we're saving this issue for contribution day. So be clear about that. Who's helping with the issue? Tag people. That way people can get credit when the issue has been resolved. And then be clear about why you're assigning yourself. I'm assigning myself out of a few hours this week to get back to Drupal. I'm going to try to accomplish this, and then again, if you don't, make sure you unassign yourself. So etiquette. Make sure you report the issue in the correct project. Not everything is Drupal core, so make sure that if the bug is in Smart Trim, report it in the Smart Trim issue queue, not core. Try to solve the problem yourself before creating an issue. That way, you might solve it before someone else has to do it for you. So give yourself an hour or so to see if it's something that is an error on your part or the way you did things. Read and reread any relevant documentation before creating an issue, because sometimes it could be that the ask that you're looking for is in documentation. Make sure you download the latest development version of Drupal and see if your issue has already been fixed there. So maybe you're a couple branches behind or a couple releases behind. It may have been fixed in another version of Drupal. And try to get help from the community in other means like resources, forums, and Drupal.org to find support options. See if the issue already exists before opening an issue. That's why that helpful, concise, just to the point title comes in handy, like searching for keywords. So search if the issue already exists. If the issue already exists, it may be closed. So maybe look at closed issues too. And if it's open, maybe you can confirm that the problem still exists. Be like, I'm having this. These are the steps I went through, and I'm confirming that this issue still exists. Be detailed, if you're creating a new issue, use the templates to remind yourself what to include. Include your versions of Drupal, include your versions of PHP, steps to reproduce, expected results versus the actual results, and any relevant code. And then please follow up. If you find a solution, provide that solution in the issue queue. Maybe you don't know how to fix it, like with the code, but you have the answer to it, so then when you come back and you share it with others, it helps people know that you're collaborating and working with the team. And I told you, utilize the autocomplete for when tagging, because we don't want a bunch of tags spelled wrong. We talked about assigning ourselves issue. And then remember, like say you've worked on a couple of novice issues and you get the hang of it. Now it's your turn to leave those novice issues for somebody else. And some don'ts. Don't report a security problem in the regular Drupal issue queue. There is a specific issue queue dedicated for that. It's private because we don't want to let all of our security secrets out into the wild. We don't want to, I don't like this word, it says hijack. We'll find another word for that. We don't want to take control over issues, and monopolize them by posting questions and, off-topic things around what they're working on. We want to make sure that issue stays succinct and easy for everyone to comprehend and read. We don't want to mark an issue RTBC without testing it.
People do that?
Yes, or we don't want to mark things RBTC +1. We want to know what you did. We want to know what you did and why you think it's reviewed and tested by the community. It's okay that you RT reviewed and tested by the community +1, but tell us what you did. Because at core, we might want to test it a couple of times. But yeah, just don't be like, oh yeah, code looks good. We want it tested. We want to make sure that it works. And this is something that we find for novices, more in the contribution farming space, but one of the smaller tasks that people do, and there's another one, I think it's a PHPCS issue. We don't want people just to go in there and change a TXT file to an MD file. So if you're working on documentation, make meaningful changes to that document. Just changing it from a TXT to an MD creates a lot of noise for maintainers. And people just don't like it anymore because it's a habit of contribution farmers. Don't change the status of an issue to fixed to closed. Drupal will automatically do that after 14 days. And if you mark it closed fixed, it sends an email, triggers an email to the maintainers where it doesn't when it closes automatically. Don't open a merge request or upload a patch on a closed or fixed issue. Don't repost someone else's patch or merge request on an open issue. But if an issue's closed, really think about it. You can make a comment and say, hey, I found that this is still not working for me, and the maintainer will write you back and maybe seek some clarification, and then a new issue might be open, but we do not do merge requests on closed issues. And don't create an empty fork. Don't open a merge request without adding any code. We want to delay opening the request until you've created the code you want to merge, because again, it sends a lot of spam, and it's a trick that people use for credit farming too. Okay, so AI. I'm an AI person in the crowd, so I need to be a little bit careful. This is our canned generic AI disclaimer. There's some of my flavor added in.
Spicy.
There's no doubt that artificial intelligence tools, and I'm not going to name any, can be powerful ways to jumpstart code or content. However, AI systems still have significant flaws. Oftentimes, the code they produce is not functional. The content they create includes assertions or citations that just aren't true. They're called hallucinations. When using AI, we require now in the issue queue that you disclose that AI was used in crafting the code or content. You carefully review and test the output to ensure it's relevant, because it draws from lots of historical data, and you want to make sure that it works. So we use human intervention. It's okay to use AI, but make sure that you go back, correct the inaccuracies, mistakes, or broken code. Bulk use of AI, when it is not relevant to an issue, provides broken or unusable code, or provides false information, will likely result in a ban from the issue. So be mindful of using AI that it comes from biased sources. It can be antiquated. Just go back and make sure that you revise what you need before giving it to the community. So development tools, we're almost done. We have Drupal Pod, which we're currently using. It's based off of Classic Pod, but Classic Pod it's going away because they decided they wanted a proprietary project. So Drupal Pod was supposed to be sunsetted in April of 2025, but now Classic Pod is putting off the date till October 2025. So we're trying to find solutions, but Drupal Pod is what we're currently using. But you can use local environment tools like DDEV, Lando, Doxel, and there's a bunch more. Does Amazy have a dev development tool?
No.
No, okay.
You can spin up environments, but the environments expire after a week.
Okay.
But
that's okay for contribution sprint. I would like to add it to another.
But Amazy is the maintainer of Lagoon,
that's
which folks can definitely use.
Okay, so I'll update this for the crew. So DDEV, Lando, Doxel, Lagoon, and there's some other ones. Tugboat is a feature that can be used in the issue queue. Simply Test Me is hit and miss. It was great before, but sometimes it's only for testing the patch and there's not a whole lot of collaboration. Drupal Forge is something that's being worked on, but right now it uses Drupal Pod. So I talked to the maintainers today, and they said that they're going to work on making sure that doesn't get antiquated in October. Drupal Pod, pretty basic. This is the same thing for Drupal Forge. You download the extension for Chrome or Firefox. You go to an issue, and you select the Drupal pod extension and it opens the issue with the merge request and spins up that environment for you. It's pretty magical.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty magical. Because it used to be where we'd have to like spend hours downloading the stuff on our machine and sharing drives with each other and all that. And then Drupal Forge, like I said, is the same concept, but it will also spin up a pre-configured site for you. It takes a few minutes and then it will email you when it's ready. And then for those folks like merge requests, like I learned on patches, so it's like, oh no, I'm so scared, I don't know how to do merge requests. Patches went away in 2020 and we're going back to like a more modern workflow. We no longer use the version, we use get. Same thing with patches versus merge requests. And so folks in the table groups can do merge requests together. Modern development workflow, we create a fork, creates a whole different fork of the project. We create a branch. Typically in Drupal, we have the issue number that we're working on and a short description. That's our branch name. We make changes. We commit with a meaningful commit message, not just you fixed bugs. You want to tell what you did. You open the merge request, and if everything passes, the branch and the fork is merged into the project. Like, that's the golden light of it, right? And then the strategic initiatives. There's Starshot, there's Experience Builder. I think we have one person here that I'm working on Experience Builder, but this is like our easy out of the box version in 2025. Automatic updates is still being worked on, that's in the Drupal CMS project. The Marketplace initiative, that's where people are creating templates. Oh, this is two different things. Okay. So the AI initiative is to accelerate AI initiative in Drupal, and the Marketplace initiative is creating templates and things for sites. Recipes, this is a new version of creating the bundles for the functionality. The recipe initiative is entering phase 2, and so there's lots of work on recipes right now, so they can get some different recipe recommendations into Drupal CMS. And then Project Browser, this is almost done, I believe, but getting into Drupal CMS, and this creates that like app-looking page. And then there's still work to do on Project Browser. If you read the beginning page of the initiative, they're still looking for people to help categorize different modules, create logos for modules, create descriptions for modules. That way, when they show up on the marketplace, it looks like a little app page. And I think we've only done 120 or 130 of them to begin with, like the top ones used, and then some maintainers have worked on their own, but there's a huge space left in Project Browser to fill. And then Drupal AI, that's that strategic initiative. And then there's some community initiatives in Slack. The Bug Smash channel moves pretty fast. That's a great place if you know how to fix code and work on bugs. That moves pretty fast. Accessibility is always good. Some of these are more community initiatives. Configuration management still is a big thing, if you're doing configuration management.
Could you add the artificial intelligence initiative to this list? That would be great.
Oh, to the list, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it as one of the big
Oh,
ones.
all on its own?
Yeah, so,
Oh, okay, great.
yeah, those slides need a little bit more love, but, yeah. And then there's contribution videos, so, and we'll open the doors and everything for everyone now, right?
Yeah.
For contribution.
Well, people flood in.
Unless people have questions first.
Do you have questions?
It's totally okay. There's going to be a lot of people around you.
Yeah.
If you've got something that you want to talk about, when it comes back.
Yeah, it's not the GQ, but it's around like the version of like Drupal, but one thing that we've noticed is we have it to 11 is that things that we have patched or are tracking, they advanced to like newer versions and things. So it's like what we're finding is like the patches that are being or the changes that are being proposed don't reflect to the version that before we're on.
So I think you can ask the backport.
Yeah, and a lot of these, like, all you have to do is make a
a single change in module that indicates that indicates which version. And when you're talking about like 10.3 and above, they all just work pretty much. Like you just need to swap out one little thing, and that module should work. But yeah, you can put in requests for backups too.
And that, like, they can make that little change or know why it won't work on the previous version too.
Yeah, or you could try it yourself, and put in a pull request, merge request. Clayton, do you remember your first code contribution?
No, I don't.
My first one was in 4.6,
Uh-huh.
and it was a spelling error that I fixed.
Yeah, I think mine was probably something similar.
Yeah.
Like improving a README file or
Yeah.
something.
That was my first one.
Yeah.
No, I did make files. We were working on the
Yeah.
Drupal 8 multilingual initiative, and every time a new version of Drupal came out, the code never changed, but I was doing the make files, which was like the one version number change, but it's learning how to make the patch.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, patching. Oh.
I admittedly, I don't know how to do a merge request. It's not my modern workflow because I'm not a developer. And so
Yeah,
merge
it's super
request-
super easy though.
that's what I hear. I just
Yeah.
haven't done it yet.
And because it's all being stored in GitLab right now, you can actually do it right in GitLab.
Yeah, I know how to do
I
that.
just click the button.
I know how to do that, but in the issue queue, I'm like, ooh,
Oh yeah,
isn't that the weirdest thing?
But in the issue queue, when you create the fork, it'll automatically shows up in GitLab. Then you just go to GitLab.
Just go to GitLab and do
then
it.
you just go to GitLab and do
Usually
it.
I open the doors in case.
Yeah, let's open the doors. I need some good drink.